Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Public Ways meeting of September 8th, 2025. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes from the August 11th meeting. You've had the opportunity to read the minutes, and if I could have a motion to accept those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm going to abstain. Next, it would be our public participation. If you'd like to speak, I ask that you step up to the podium, give your name, your address, and we're going to give you about 2 minutes. We have a pretty full agenda tonight, so if anybody would like to speak, please do so at this time.
Good afternoon. My name is Madeline Schwab. I live at 495 Wolf Avenue, Wadsworth, Ohio. I'm the Vice President of Friends of Wadsworth Trails, and I'm here representing that group. The purpose of Friends of Wadsworth Trails is to be the eyes and ears of the city, to ensure that the parks and trails are safe and taken care of. So I am here today not demanding anything, but bringing to your attention some areas in the city that need addressing. First of all, I would like an update of the College Street Sidewalk project. How is that coming along? Is the grant process still in place? Have you heard anything about the project? What can I do to help? Second, I took about 50 people on the guided hike this past Saturday to Memorial Park. The city has done a great job improving the playground, the restrooms, and the parking around the Blue Tip Park. However, the city has neglected the older areas of the park. The trails behind the stadium that lead up from the sidewalk by the trash can to the Blue Tip Park are very rutted out and need additional stones and dirt to level the pathway. Another trail is hardly usable as it is covered with tree roots, which make it difficult to walk. So that path would need some dirt and mulch to cover the tripping hazards. In addition, the parking lot near the shelter is like craterland. The potholes need to be repaired. Another area filled with potholes is a triangle area just before the trolley house when you're coming around Durling. That's another place that is filled with potholes and needs fixing. My one last concern is the low-lying area on the paved sidewalk at the trolley line park. I don't know if you've ever been there. You walk up from the parking lot, and there's a big pine tree. Well, there's a low area. And it's fine during the spring and the summer, but in the winter, the water stays on the paved area. And when we're walking at night, it's like, black ice, and somebody's going to fall and hurt themselves. So maybe a culvert would help. But anyway, those are the 3 issues I have concerned today, and thank you for listening. Please let me know if any of these issues will be addressed. I would like to bring some good news to the people in our group. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to step forward and speak?
My name is Larry Doyle, and I live up on High Point Drive. And first I want to say, Jeannie, thank you. High Point Drive looks great now that the trees have been cut down. And also, I'm a member of the Friends of the Wadsworth Trails, was there at a meeting the other night and shared a concern, and they said I should address you. And that may be true, or it may be better in the future if I just talk with one person, a contact person. Let me say a couple things about the interurban trail, safety concerns that have been addressed, one safety concern that I have, and offer a couple solutions for it. First, the interurban trail is the bike trail that starts in the center of town and goes all the way down to Silver Creek Drive, where the trolley line house is. It's great. I'm on it 3 days a week, and I see everything that goes on, and I'm so thankful that it's there. So thank you to the city that we have a trail like that, and hopefully we'll be able to go and connect with the towpath trail. That would be awesome. Safety concerns that have been addressed, I want to thank Matt Hiscock. There were some intersections where children would ride up to the corner of the intersection and just blow right through without stopping. Now, there are stop signs at every intersection. Thank you. That's great. Also, that when you're on Chestnut Street, there's a part of the trail that goes up along the left-hand side Now we can ride up that trail or walk up that trail without being concerned about being run over by a car. So thank you again. One of the safety concerns that I'll speak about tonight, there are more, but just this one that's very important, is if you are familiar with Miller Park, there's a couple baseball fields there, and then there's an S-curve that goes down on the trail and butts right into Chestnut Street. I have 11 grandchildren, and I know how they ride bikes sometimes. One of these times, one of our kids in Wadsworth is going to go down that S-curve and go straight through onto Chestnut Street. And if you're familiar with that spot, cars come over the hill, a blind hill, and they'd be coming down where it butts, and they come from the other direction. Really, you're shaking your head, you know what I'm talking about. So that's a concern. The solution ultimately is to have a solid barrier right at the end so that everybody knows that they have to turn a hard left and go up the newer path that's there. In the meantime, before we can get a hard barrier, we can paint lines on there that say everybody turn this way. And granted, there's a little stop sign there, and all the children should stop, but we know that children aren't always going to stop when they should. And the second thing is, I know up on Chestnut there are these pylons also that protect everybody and say, hey, stay on the path. If we just put painted lines right now and some pylons along there, hopefully we'd keep the kids safer. Maybe there is a way to talk about these things directly with somebody. Matt, I don't know if that would be you.
I'd be happy to speak.
In the future, I'll just talk directly with you. But thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Anybody else? Let's move on to our parks update. We'll start with Freed Park.
I'll take that one. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Freed Park update. Our pre-construction meeting occurred on August 27th, and the following week, our contractor mobilized. I'm happy to say today that the contractor did start work out there. They installed some silt fence and some stormwater erosion control around the site, and they actually started stripping topsoil. They could plan on working 12-hour days out there, 5 days a week. Told them if they needed to work Saturdays, but they said they rarely do because they were able to get so much done during full 12-hour days for a 5-day work week. The city crews were out there. They removed the old backstop from the T-ball field that was out there. They also removed the basketball poles that we're going to be reusing once we get the new basketball court installed out there. They took out the bleachers from that park as well as the picnic tables from the pavilion area so they didn't get disrupted during construction. They started removing the play structure that's out there today, actually, and they should be done removing that tomorrow. They just have the posts in the ground that they have to pull out. The rest of the structure is going. Try to walk you through the project looking ahead. Like I said, today they started stripping the topsoil. Next, they'll probably move on to the detention basin construction. That way they have an area to land on the stormwater that's on the site before they actually put the lines in. They'll do subgrade cut and fill. There's some areas lower that need to be filled and compacted in relation to the higher areas. They'll get trenching installed for the electric conduit that'll be going out to the poles for the field lighting. They'll get the under drainage for the field itself installed and directed in the detention basin, as well as the other stormwater infrastructure involved in the area. Final subgrade for the field will be cut at that point. They'll get the stone. There's 5 inches of stone and another 2-inch layer that the turf actually sits on top of. They'll get that established and all laser graded. They'll get the fences installed then, backstop, and foul lines and back fence. They'll get the foundation for the new restroom installed and the utilities ran to that. We were able to get both sanitary and water tap-ins to that restroom, so we didn't have to use a composting bathroom out there. So they'll actually have to bore underneath Leatherman Road to tap into the sanitary main on the west side of the road. So they'll get that going. After all that's done, final grading will get taken care of, as long as concrete walkways and everything poured, foundations for the dugouts they will go in at that time, and then it'll be seeding and strowing. So substantial completion for that project is probably mid to late November. So we're looking forward to that. in meeting with the contractor out at the site today, they're very optimistic and pleased with the site. It's wide open for them. They're excited to get moving out there today, and I think, well, nice, successful project moving forward. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I'm probably going to have the same question on each one of these, but free park, so there is a estimated number for all the approvals, and then there's a way of tracking it to make sure we're in budget and all that.
Yes.
Any further questions? Okay. Let's move on to Weatherstone Park.
I'm sorry, before you move on, what was the estimated cost for free park? Do you know?
I think it was
Just an estimate.
Yeah, estimated wise 1.7, Mr. Renacci, and what we had originally done was we came to council with estimates about 1.8 million for the entire project, which included some improvements which we had to cut out of the project based upon the estimates. So things that won't be done as part of this particular project, but we've put into your 2026 budget for your consideration, included redoing the parking lot out there. It's in pretty bad shape, replacing the play structure, as well as building a new basketball court, which are all being removed as part of the project in this phase. So those are some things that we weren't able to fit within the budget of the estimate right now.
Okay.
Now, is it, I can't recall, that's going to be another half court?
It was actually
Basketball?
a full court,
Okay.
a basketball court, and we're looking to replace it with a full court.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to Weatherstone Park.
I'll speak to that. That project, we have really not a lot of update from last time. We have essentially a conceptual plan that's complete, and we have a cost estimate for 2026. So we have really selected, and we'll be recommending in the 2026 budget for that to move forward to construction, complete new design and to construction, and really have pretty good numbers for us to move forward with, so that we can know that we have enough money in the budget if we choose to put it in there. So that's pretty much ready for next year.
Do you have that number estimate? I'm just looking for a guess. I mean, close.
Yeah, so I think we're looking at about 650, 600,
Okay.
650 right now. And again, Mr. Renacci and all of the committee members, we will be doing a deeper dive on these costs during your budget
Sure.
hearings. But for purposes of an estimate, it's about 650 for Weatherstone.
Okay. Yeah, when you get to the next ones, I'm going to ask the same question.
Yep, we'll be ready for those.
We'll know next time now.
Any further questions? Okay, let's move on to Valley View.
Okay, Valley View is a little bit farther behind. We're working on conceptual design still. We do have some preliminary numbers for the 2026 budget, because really the main goal of this is to make sure that we have, we're ready so that if we choose to budget it next year, that we have good scope, we have good cost estimates to make sure that it's we go in with our eyes open. So we aren't quite there yet with having the conceptual plan yet, but we do have a kind of a schematic list of what the project would cost if we choose these amenities, and that's what we'll be recommending in the 2026 budget. And for the cost amount, I don't recall.
It's about $950,000 for this one. It's a much more extensive park improvement than the proposed Weatherstone.
Other questions? Okay, let's talk about the Brickyard for a while.
Okay, there's a lot more to discuss on Brickyard. So I think I mentioned before, in my brain, I separate this into really three separate projects. One project is to take the old Brickyard facility and to remediate it, meaning to essentially demolish it and remove any sort of contamination. And as of the last meeting, what the intent from our consultant was to just essentially pulverize and cover is the approach that they more or less had discussed. So that right now, in kind of a quality engineering sense, they've potentially looked at some cost savings that they might be able to actually start removing a few key areas that would save some cost rather than bringing, because you have to bring 2 feet of fill in. And so they may be able to reduce the amount of fill if they can do some spot removals, and that's still pending. So that's just an option. So we're looking at ways to The budget for that is 2.1 million. That's from the grant that's been already offered. And so to get to that $2.1 million number, we're trying to get the biggest bang for the buck, which is to figure how much can we get to this site, and can we do any grading work we need to do on the athletic complex. We can do some of the benefit to the athletic complex by doing some grading work there that would help this remediation work. So that is still in the process. We're looking at finalizing that design here in this month, hopefully this month, and being able to even get construction started before the end of the year. So,
Does that remediation also include clearing some of the garbage and disposal in the passive area of the park?
yes and no. The remediation grant that's not eligible for the remediation grant to pay for, but it might be prudent to have the contractor doing the remediation work to do that work as well. So it would likely be an alternate in that process of bidding. So we're not quite sure yet as to who's going to do that, but that is something we've surveyed those. We know where the trash piles are. We're ready to put those into some sort of bid documents, but we have confirmed that that's not an eligible cost that the remediation grant pays for.
The 2.1, so that's 100% covered by the brownstone funding that you get, right?
Yes.
And we don't get, we hand them the project, spell it all out, say it's 2.1, then they give us the money. Is that how that works? Or do we pay it and then they get it back?
It's actually a Port Authority project, so is that correct?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different than that, Mr. Nacy, very close but different. So we know that our project, the Brickyard project here in Medina County, has been awarded a $2.1 million state brownfield grant. However, according to that state brownfield grant process, they don't award the money to the city. They award it to the local port authority. So the Medina County Port Authority will actually be the entity who accepts the finances. What we will need to do is expend those dollars and then seek reimbursement through the Port Authority for every dollar spent. We actually can already begin to do some of that once they receive it for things like a percentage of the land acquisition costs, percentages of the remediation experts' fees, some of those types of things. So we will be asking council to approve expenditures that go towards remediation of the brickyard starting this year, hopefully, and we'll be getting a dollar for dollar return towards a 2.1 brownfield grant. Well, along those lines, if I could also share with you, and it goes, Mr. Rosberg, maybe to your question, while we identified that the clearing of the passive park area, things like debris piles, cars in ponds, those kind of things that need to be cleaned up in this first phase of action can't be paid for by the remediation grant, remember that we also have $2.5 million in an award from one-time state capital grant dollars, and that has already been received from the city. So our hope would be to find the right entity that can do multiple steps in this process and maybe pay for some of those cleanup phases that are not covered by the remediation grant through the one-time state dollars that we already have in-house. That would be ideal if we would. And then hopefully move towards really the creation of a vast majority of the passive park part of it while using the remainder of those dollars, which would include trailheads, the creation of trails, the cleaning of the passive park area, those kind of things.
Other questions?
So to continue, so essentially the three projects. Second project we discussed briefly, the trails is really the project which would include some of the removal of some of the debris. So that process is in design now. The trails have been, many of the trails have been marked. The consultant has done a walkthrough of those trail locations and is perfecting those alignments as we speak. And then once those are perfected, then we'll be able to move toward a bid package of getting the trailhead and whatever trail work we can afford given the funding we have. So that scope is still being developed to make sure that it stays within whatever budget we have for that trail project. And then the third project is the complex.
So you don't have a number on that one yet?
Well, the 2.5 number is the overall project
For the trails?
for which the trails would be part of
Okay.
that. and a portion of that has been spent in the consulting costs.
Okay.
So, and then the third project is in the athletic complex itself, which is really going to be, the design will be continued through the end of this year. That tangential to that is the access coming through St. Ed's, and that's been moving forward. We've had some healthy conversations, very helpful conversations with their team. So they're pretty well on board with what we've shown them. They're understanding the benefit that it provides to the St. Ed's property. So I think we're all just a matter of working out the minor details now to get that finalized. So that process coupled with the finalizing the design, so we should be ready for next year to be able to go to construction once the 2026 budget determines kind of what we can afford.
Once we get the passive portion of that, is there a time frame in which we have to keep that, or is that something we could explore talking to Medina County Parks to see if they would take over the maintenance of that, kind of like we did with Holmesbrook, do a long-term lease to them and let them manage that, because that's what they're great at?
Mr. Rosberg, I would have to research if there are any conditions for the acceptance of those one-time strategic dollars in terms of long-term ownership. So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you to that, but I can certainly look into that. I would tell you that our investment in the property is significant already, from the purchase price on to some of the other items that we're at least proposing to council for consideration next year. So I think it would have to be an important meeting of the minds in order to hand off that kind of an asset for any period of time to the park district, if you will, or any entity, if you will. A couple of items I want to add that go to Mr. Renace's questions and maybe answer some other questions. So there is an aspect of funding that hadn't been identified by Mr. Davis' comments, and it's something that you probably recall. Mr. Renace may not know, only because he hasn't been a part of those discussions. So we have a private donor that's looking to contribute about $900,000 towards the passive park side of it, but their donation will be somewhat dependent upon a finished product, if you will. So those would be dollars that would come back to us potentially. Obviously, there's no guarantee, but I think it's been significant discussions, and Mr. Morris, as our ED director, has been involved and engaged in those discussions. So overall, something that I want to make sure you understand is the overall project estimate at this point in time, and that's based upon a pretty thorough discussion and bi-weekly meetings with our consultant. Their opinion of probable cost all in is about $14 million for this particular project right now. So we identified, $2.6 million in grant dollars, another $900,000 perhaps in a private donation in terms of going towards those monies. But there will be significant debt issuance related costs. That's how we're proposing that we might need to pay for that. The debt issuance will probably come in the form of multiple different funding sources. And again, all of this will be discussed at a future capital improvements project discussion, and you'll have a document that maybe will outline some of these as we understand it at that point in time. But there'll be a combination of funding sources that repay any issuance of debt, which will include income tax dollars, general fund dollars, but will also include some utility-related debt issuances because of the utilities that will be run to the facility. So as we see it today, I want to make sure that you hear numbers and those types of things. It's about a $14 million project. Important to note that number grows. When we first started talking about this particular project, I think initial estimates under a different concept, admittedly, was about $12 million, but it has grown just by both inflationary matters as well as a better understanding of what we actually purchased and what's out there and what it's going to take to develop it into the property that we'd like to see it develop into. So I want to make sure that I give you as much information I can on some of those numbers and aspects.
So I'm going to back into that. At 14, that means the complex 9.4 million?
Roughly, that includes utility, infrastructure, access drives, parking lots, athletic facilities, bathroom facilities, a multi-purpose regular grass field area, and obviously all the grading and improvements and design dollars that go into those items.
And can I ask, since I was around, what did we pay for that property?
I believe the purchase price was $2 million? Just under $2 million.
So in the end, you're going to have about 16 to 17 million in this property.
I believe so, yes.
I'm just adding up the
Yep.
numbers. Okay. And that's all to be approved in the next year's budget?
Some of those items have already been included. For instance, the use of the $2.5 million in state one-time dollars, that's in this year's budget, Mr. Renacci, so that's already been approved. There has been numerous discussions about the 2.1 remediation brownfield grant. So our hope would be that if we go out to bid for some of that work in, let's say, October, that we're able to award a contract this year, and there is actually significant winter work that they can get started on if selected. And so our idea would be to use some of those dollars that we already have accessible. Then we move into 26, and obviously through our budget discussions later this year, we'll know where we stand on that particular aspect of the project.
How did we fund the 2 million purchase? How did we fund that? Was it cash?
I was not a part of that. I apologize. Do you know how that money came about, Mayor? Fund, the 456 fund. So we have a 456 fund, which is the Parkland Acquisition Fund. Perhaps some of that money was used, but I believe yeah, we could check on that. But I believe a significant portion of it was general fund dollars that were put towards it. But we can definitely get more definitive.
Again, this is
answer.
long term, but if you're using debt to finance this, did you say it's going to come out of utilities and tax?
Yeah, there'd be more than two funding sources, but generally there'll be some debt that will be utility oriented, and there'll be some debt that'll be general fund oriented. So there'll be both GO obligation as well as utility debt obligation.
Okay.
Do you foresee any possible grants in the future? Additional grants?
We will certainly, Ms. Hines, keep our eyes open for that, and we have actively engaged that, and I know that Mr. Davis has entered into some relationships with folks who can help us find granting opportunities for different items. We've already identified that. We're also hopeful that there'll be sponsorship opportunities. I'm not going to sit here and tell the committee that I think we're going to find $12 million worth of sponsorship opportunities, but there'll be an opportunity for folks to do that. If you go to any athletic complex in any municipally owned area around us, there are oftentimes lots of signage in terms of relationships with sponsors and those kind of things. So we're going to look for those opportunities too.
And there was no money spent that has a timetable that says this all has to be done. I mean, you could actually take the land, do the remediation, and sit on it for a while, and then try and get grants and other things, and this could be a many multi-year project versus trying to get it done in a couple of years.
Yeah, I believe the one-time strategic capital dollars that came from the state have an expectation of expenditure, but I don't know that it's a mandatory expenditure by the end of, by a deadline. But I think already we're not going to have a problem establishing those expenditures already based upon design fees, which come out of it, some of the remediation work that might come out of it. So I don't think we're going to have any issues there. I think the bigger answer to that question, Mr. Renacci, and maybe it's not the direction you were looking for in terms of an answer, but I'll tell you is it's the expectation of our community. I mean, I think well before we acquired those properties, there's been problems with leagues having enough field accessibility, families being concerned about accessibility. At council meetings, we had families come in and coaches come in and leagues come in and speak to council about their item. I will tell the committee that I regularly, it's not daily, but regularly I hear from those leagues and those answers as to, or questions as to why we haven't acted or why we haven't built those fields. So I think that's more of a timeliness issue in terms of expectations of some in our community than necessarily me telling the committee or telling you, I know definitively we have to use these dollars
Sure.
and have a completed project by a certain date.
The only thing is, I remember being a baseball coach for 15 years and using all the fields, and I understand you'd like to have everything you can have today, but the question is, what's the best way of spending taxpayer dollars? So whenever I hear debt, that always bothers me. When I was at the federal government, nobody ever paid attention to debt. No one still does. But as you get closer to home, you hope everybody pays attention to the debt. Okay.
Any more on the Brickyard?
That's all I have for Brickyard.
Mr. Parrish?
No, sir.
How about ball field maintenance, Mr. Bellick?
Yes, sir. So we are waiting to get one more estimate for AC Field to get that field laser graded and reconditioned like we did with Weatherstone number 1. And Weatherstone number 2, we're actually trying to lump in with this as well. If you remember, the last time we did both these field assessments, we had a consultant come in and actually test the soil in those on the field. And these 2 fields came back the same way as a real sandy, beachy playing surface. So it was the same recommendation for these 2 fields that we got for the first one. So looking to get that quote by the end of this week and see if we can move forward with that. And wanted to update Mr. Parrish because I know you have questions about Bone Park all the time too. While not a baseball field, this year during our SIP we dropped 200 tons of asphalt grindings out there to top dress the parking lot. And once the street department gets some time in their schedule, they're going to get out there and grade that out the parking lot, as well as repair the guardrail.
May I ask, what is the cause for all that going away?
High schoolers doing burnouts in the parking lot pretty much.
That does not seem like you would have that much tonnage going away. It would take water, it'd take erosion to do that, it seems to me. And is there erosion issues there?
I don't think we really have had any erosion issues out there per se. It's pretty flat.
Because
I think
it's got to disappear somewhere, and water does amazing things.
Kicks off to the side and from doing burnouts and donuts in that parking lot. And I'm sure as soon as we get that 200 tons laid down and rolled in all nice, the next day they're going to be down there tearing it up again. And it's just an ongoing issue that we have have had at that park for years, as well as Free Park too. And it's kind of the same situation out there.
Now that we've had a season under our belt with the conditioning at Weatherstone 1, how has it held up, and has there been a big difference?
Big difference. We've got a lot of positive feedback from that, and then the field really firmed up. It's really a lot better of a playing surface this year. And then ultimately we want to get to that Washington mix, top it off, and really get the field nice and increase the playability of it.
My point was, if this isn't working, why are we even considering it somewhere else? But if it's working, and I've known, and Mr. Renacci having coached, those fields have been atrocious for years, and we were just using what I would guess is probably the cheapest ball mix we could get, and it doesn't always help to use the cheapest thing.
Sure, and I think the grading too goes a long way with it. You start getting pockets of water and erosion from Weatherstone 2 coming down to the first field there at the lower half. It washing out, pushing the silt and the clay out of it, and just leaving sand behind, and then that gets drug in, and it's kind of a vicious cycle. Once it starts going. But now that field's laser graded, that dirt is amended, it's really locked in nice, and it's playing a lot better.
Right.
One other piece of information I think would be helpful for council, I was reminding me when you were talking about the baseball, because sometimes I remember back in the Steiner days, the 200 members of Steiner were the most vocal of the 20,000 people in the community. So we heard from the Steiner people all the time, but they were only 200, very vocal, always wanting something done, but there are 20,000 citizens in the city. So it'd be interesting to know how many participants do we really have in baseball? I mean, I think that should be the driver, unless there's some other thing that we're doing this for that would mean big economic value to the city. It does seem like a lot of money on ball fields. And again, being a coach, I'm sure that I'll get all the phone calls from all the coaches after this, but the real question is, how much do you spend for the vocalist group, which I would bet you 200 families use the ball fields, probably the same thing. So I think that would be helpful in making decisions like this. I would never say this is a bad decision, but in my opinion, you got to compare the costs to the value, to the economics, to the future, and all that stuff too. So I just throw that out.
I have another question following in that lines. The usage agreement, is there requirements by Wadsworth Youth Baseball to supply any amounts of this, this amount of money and so forth? Is there any kind of agreement that way? That where they, put in X amount of dollars, if the city's going to make improvements or anything like that?
I am unaware of any agreements that state any of those things. I don't know, Matt, if you have any idea of that or not.
So a couple of comments and thoughts to Mr. Renace's question. I believe during the Parks Master Plan presentations where more than just youth baseball was engaged and involved in that, there was a number thrown out that I think it was 4 of 10 families in Wadsworth have someone playing in youth baseball or softball. I want to make sure I say that. It's both baseball and softball. And they had over 600 participants at the time of that particular presentation in terms of those things. It's also not accounting for the travel ball teams, which seem to be very popular nowadays. I know they were when my son played, and they continue to be very popular. So it is a large portion, but I'm hearing the commentary loud and clear that you all are charged with, and the administrative team are charged with making sure we're making sound decisions on behalf of all of our community, not just unique groups within our community. The parks and the athletic fields in the parks obviously have a unique user group, but we need to make sure we balance priorities and decisions based upon a broader scale and a broader analysis. So I hear that loud and clear. The question about, Mr. Parrish, specific exclusive use agreements is what it's referred to in some of the park utilities. I don't know of one that pertains to Wadsworth youth baseball and softball where they are a contributing funder of park projects at their ball fields. I don't know of that. And I would even go as far as telling you I am not familiar. If we don't have one with them, I'm almost positive we don't have any with any travel ball team organization at this point in time. But we can certainly look into that.
I want to come back to that after we finish plaques, if at all possible.
Any other discussion on ball fields? How about the E.J. Young Memorial? Any progress on that?
I can take that. I want to thank Mr. Williams who gave me some really solid leads in terms of talking with some individuals who are local here. I did have an opportunity to meet with that individual. I continue to, I'll just say it, I continue to chase some other individuals without any luck, but had a beneficial discussion. Received more names and information and leads, which I've reached out and contacted folks who are artists and are within the artist community that are a little bit closer to home that might be able to help us with getting this project off of sort of the drawing board and into reality. So I continue to work on that. More to come, I guess, is what I'd say at this point.
Any questions on that? Okay. Mr. Bellick, dedication plaques.
Dedication plaques are ordered and they should be in mid-October.
Awesome.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me a heads up on a supplier. I did end up using Woodland
Okay.
for that, so they were great to work with. And
Yeah, good.
I would like to come back after the plaques about Mule Park again, and specifically. I saw that the dedication of the AEDs, and it was like that generous donation by the Wadsworth Area Soccer Association, and that got me thinking about other issues involved. And one was, of course, House Bill 47, which is a requirement of AEDs, and then Lindsay's law is the liability issue for coaches and so forth to make sure you do those things in awareness. But that wasn't what I ran into. I started asking some questions myself, and then I asked for the agreement from the WASA, their agreement. And that opened up a different set of concerns. Okay, and those concerns I voiced to Mr. Hiscock on Friday, the 5th. And here I'm going to read it so we know what it is. Re-attending the ribbon cutting for the new AEDs, I got me thinking about the Ohio House Bill 47 and Lindsay's laws. I reached out to WASA and was provided their agreement. The agreement was 10 years with an automatic renewal of continuous renewal. It is now 17 years since that execution. And so that made me wonder, are we having agreements and we don't necessarily know or are overseeing these constant renewals and so forth and what's happening? And so that brought up a red flag for me. And then What is the process for monitoring these non-financial agreements? Because they're non-financial, and I'm sure that there's not an auditor type situation. And you just indicated you didn't know for sure about financial requirements. And that, I think, is needed to know what all our agreements are and making sure they're benefiting the city as well as the organization. I mean, they're good things. If they're outdated, they may not be benefiting both of us. Who is responsible for monitoring those? Okay. And then both with House Bill 47 and Lindsley's Law, where are meeting requirements for this legislation? Are we meeting it? And Mr. Hitchcock indicated that we are planning on the 26th budget to meet with that. And for the Lindsay's Law, he indicated that we have sovereign immunity, basically. And that kind of worried me, that we said we have sovereign immunity, because it seemed like we were using that as an umbrella to protect us if we are defective or we aren't taking care of business. So I'm hoping that we make sure that we take care of all these little things so that is not come into play. That's, I think, is very important.
Mr. Parrish, that's all great.
I'm going to finish, please, Mr. I'm going to finish.
Well,
please.
no, I'm going to tell you that this is not on the agenda. I'd like to move it to next month's meeting, and we'll put it on the agenda at your request.
Please? May I finish?
You've got a couple of minutes.
And then also please explain what WASA's generously raised money for the required AEDs, lessening the financial responsibility of the city. Has the city received any capital budget requests from WASA? Have they asked for anything recently? And lastly, to look at the agreement, I have the agreement here, and it's the payment number 9. Are we following number 9? Number 9, about how we go through the process of funding and so forth. I want to make sure that that was all done. I want to bring that awareness to all of us so we know that there's possible problems or issues.
Next time I would ask you that you bring it to us, and we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Thank you. Let's move on to streets and sidewalks and parking lots.
Okay, I'll cover things, try to get through quickly given the times here. I'll just kind of go through the list of things I can help with, and if you don't mind, just in the interest of time.
Sure.
So the annual street improvement project is done. That's been completed. It was Melway paving. That's I think it went quite well on time. The street striping is done. That again was completed here in August. Crack sealing is slightly behind. That should be expected to be done in the next week or two. Slightly behind schedule, but not too far off. And the sidewalk improvement project is done. So I would just point out that in the past there've been some requests to make sure we get these projects moved along, and we're really pleased that things got done pretty well on time. Despite in fact we have, for much of this year, we've had 3 vacancies. Through difficulties of hiring engineering staff, so with our vacancies, we're still kept up on schedule. So we're quite proud of that, and then the projects have gone very well. So
Real quick on the sidewalks, and again, I know we're running out of time, but is there a master plan on every sidewalk that has a problem in the city and how we're going to approach it? Because I know there's a lot of sidewalks that are buckling and busted, and how is that? Is that part of this? Is there a plan that?
Yes and no. There is certainly, we have a number of inspection processes of GIS maps and such that does create that the background that forms these projects every year.
But we don't have a master of every sidewalk and every.
Not quite exactly as you're thinking maybe, but yeah, there is we do have a pretty robust inspection and analysis process, both for streets and for sidewalks that feed these projects. So, okay, I'll continue to move forward. The OPWC Wintergreen Streets project that the bids were delayed on that because the funding is not available until later in the summer. So that has just been the low bidder for that is Melway Paving again, if I recall correctly. And so that project, fortunately, actually too, that was estimated at 800,000-ish, and it's come well under that estimate. So we may be able to get a little bit of extra work out of that because we have some savings. So to use up all the OPWC money, if you don't use enough of it, you don't get the full benefit. So we're still working on the final scope on that one. Continuing on, just real quick, the college Street, Treese Road. There's no updates from last time. We had been granted the $150,000 grant, and we're still waiting to hear. The lady who administers the grant went on maternity leave with ODOT, and so I'm still reaching out to her replacement in her interim, and have not heard back yet. So that's still, that's a preliminary design grant that, as we discussed last time. And then that's kind of the quick list, and we'll probably need to spend a little more time on Southwest parking here. So Southwest parking, just as a quick update for that. One of the complications with that, among many, is the project is going to be moving some of the overhead electrical underground. And by doing that, some of the buildings that are abutting that area will have to then reconnect from an above ground to below ground service for the electrical services that are on the outsides of the building. That's a fairly simple process. For the electrical services that are on the inside of the building, it's a much more costly process. And so we've been reaching out to Mr. Morris, particularly our economic development director, has reached out to the property owners. We had our first meeting with one of them here last week, and very positive, discussing some of the options, and so we're trying to get those conversations so that all the affected property owners are able to get it as soon as possible, make plans for how to coordinate this project. So that's something that was pretty ongoing this last month, and maybe Mr. Hiscock has more details on some of that as well.
So I think the committee understands, and as you approved in this year's budget, that was primarily a completion of the improvements that happened in that area of the city's parking lots, but on the north side. This is sort of the south side of that particular parking area. If you recall, the council authorized and we acquired a private property in that area and tore down a building that was in that particular area. But one of the major aspects of the project is a removal of that aerial feeds, in particular of electric, and placing them underground, similar to what was done in the northern improvements of that southwest parking lot area. So in your budget, it's probably towards Mr. Bernace's questions, but I came prepared for this one. You approved about $585,000 worth of spending capacity for the southwest parking lot. That came from two particular sources: the 425 fund, which is the general capital improvement fund, and the 210 fund, which is the parking fund, if you will. So those were two of the primary sources. You also probably recall that you were asked to consider the addition of a pavilion in that particular project, which was not part of your originally approved budget, but a supplemental appropriation was brought to you, and we had, I think, numerous conversations over a period of time, whether to say that was right or wrong or not. And I think through those discussions, you were able to suggest we go with a more economical pavilion than what was first considered. And you ultimately approved a $300,000 supplemental out of the 425 for that pavilion structure and its foundation, if you will, for that. So those are the financing terms behind the Southwest parking lot project.
When these property owners, since we're changing the way their line comes in, who's responsible for the new hookup fees?
Yeah, so I think it's an excellent question, and it's actually an excellent snapshot and test scenario for us as a city to understand how the process might work on a much larger scale, for instance, like the downtown improvement project. It's a little bit different for the Southwest parking lot project because you don't have water and sewer hookups that we might understandably have on the downtown project because they don't come in from the rear side of those particular parcels. But ultimately, to be succinct and answer your question, Mr. Rosberg, the city, as part of its process and as part of its fiscal terms in this project, will bring the new underground power right up to the buildings. I mean, we will cap it almost right at the building. It'll be the private property owner's responsibility to then expend their dollars to connect to the new underground. However, we have been exploring what type of assistance we might be able to lend to those private property owners so that they can make the hookup and take advantage of the new underground utilities. I will tell you that we will keep both utilities running. So the old legacy utility feed will be there, but at some point they've got to switch over to the new feed. We're not just going to build it right up to the property line and just leave it sort of abandoned for a period of time. You can't do that. In fact, that's probably in violation of electrical code requirements. However, we've kind of gotten an estimate from an independent electrician, the same way we've been trying to explore and give answers to council for the downtown improvement project when it comes due, as to what each private entity's cost might be. Just estimates, but we're bringing those estimates to these meetings with the private property owners to say, you know, we think this will cost you this amount. You're free and should go out and find qualified electricians to make the hookup for you. And then we're hoping by the time we're ready to do that, which isn't going to happen tomorrow, or may not even happen in this particular year, but by the time the project is wrapped up, we're going to need to have answers as to how and in what form may we assist these individuals. There's also legal issues involved with what we can and can't do there. So it might be a process where we use the CIC, the Community Investment Corporation again, and determine what, if anything, is the right way to do that. I don't believe, and I think you all would probably join with me, that we can't just willy-nilly use public dollars to improve private property. You can't do that. You get in trouble when you do those kind of things. But you can assist economic development means to do certain things. And so does that mean we offer some type of low-interest loan program? Does the CIC manage that for us? Do we do some type of combination of that? What is the maximum that we can contribute towards it? Again, these are all questions that we don't have answers for yet, but things we are exploring, and I wanted the committee to know that.
I also have the concern, you know, if would these new feed lines require a private building owner to upgrade their entire panel and things like that versus what is there? Because that could get pretty pricey.
Yeah, and that is some of the concerns with one or two of the properties. For instance, they have panels that are inside the building, which is no longer, you can't do that with the electrical code anywhere. So they have to come out of those buildings and be placed outdoors. Again, we'll be bringing the public feed right up to the area of where the panel may be, but it is on them to install that panel and upgrade to the ring. That doesn't mean that their entire building will need upgraded, but certainly the panel may need to be upgraded.
I would just add, I don't think the city would ever want to get involved in going into private property and replacing things, because that would be a long-term liability for the city going forward. I mean, it's wherever that line ends, the city comes to it, and the private property owner would have to take it, because you go into that building and you're going to, and the city takes responsibility for that building for a long, long time after that. That's why they can't do it.
Well, and I understand that. I'm just concerned about some of these panels that are, you know, it could be detrimental to some of our business, and maybe there's some grant funds, or we could create some kind of grant to assist. My gosh, we gave $75,000 to a restaurant owner or a building owner for a restaurant. We should be able to enhance or make some provisions for others too. That's just my thought. Anything else on Southwest parking lot? Okay, City Hall East parking lot project update.
I will mention that. So we are very near getting design or bid documents for that, and so we're prepared to come out requesting this legislation to give us authorization to go to advertise for bid. You see there, here we would request 2 readings for that. If we do a bid opening, if we start advertising here in, let's say, 2 weeks, we would potentially have a bid opening somewhere in early, late September, early October. And we'd like to try to get the project done this year, so we want to expedite as much as we can. So that's the
And I can't recall, what was budgeted this year for that?
Sure thing, I brought that with me. So for the City Hall parking lot, as you recall, this was a approved project in your budget after several discussions late in the budget season. Your approved budget number was $550,000. We've used some of that already on design, so that's why you'll see the legislation request is for authorization of only $500,000 at this point in time, which is the remaining funds that we would like to contribute towards or point towards construction of the project. The funding sources for the City Hall parking lot included very similar funding sources as was mentioned in the Southwest parking lot, but included the 425 fund for the bulk of it, the 210 parking fund for some of it, and then because there are some utility aspects, there is some 430 building fund improvement dollars within that 550 budget. I would correct one thing that Mr. Davis said. Although his recommendation to me was to ask for 2 readings, I'm going to ask you to consider suspension of the rules and an emergency clause at our next meeting because we want to bid this project this year.
Any further questions?
Just a process. So when the 550 is approved, I mean, City Council approved that, but you gave them, you laid out everything that needed to be done, all the estimates, and said, here's the cost, it's going to be 550.
I wish I could say absolutely yes to you, Mr. Renacci, but we really didn't have great ideas as to what it was going to take. This was really a project that had been, the can had been kicked for at least 3 budget seasons. It had been approved, and then it wasn't approved, and then it didn't move forward in 3 years. So it was first and foremost a maintenance related. The City Hall parking lot's a nightmare. The improvements in and access of the parking lot is a nightmare. So we did our best guess as to what we thought the complete estimate would be. Unfortunately, also during that process, we contemplated something that had occurred in the parking lot, in particular a police shooting, and we realized that we needed to make some additional improvements in the parking lot that might protect against that type of unfortunate incident again. So we added some items to the budget as part of that. Lastly, I would tell you there used to be, as you probably recall during your time as mayor, there was a home over there that the city owned on the corner that had been demolished. So it wasn't just a maintenance and repair of the parking lot, but it was an expansion of that parking lot. And I know near and dear to Mr. Rosbert, there's been some additions on his particular property, currently his business property, and we wanted to make sure that whatever improvements we made to this particular area matched up as well as could be to that particular area. So there was some best guesses going on in this particular number, and quite frankly, I think while I'm optimistic, I'm not sure that we have the right budget number for what we might see out of bidding proposals.
So it might be half.
I like that approach.
All right, just ask him.
Okay, at this point then I would ask for a motion from somebody to move this legislation forward in suspending the 3 reading rule out of concern and safety for our courts, our City Hall employees, and our police officers with the improvements. They really need a safe place to be able to park and feel comfortable coming to work every day.
Just one comment.
Mr. Renacci?
That 500,000 is already approved though, right? If I understand this, this is already approved.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's appropriated. We need authorization to expend it and enter into a construction contract once bids are received.
And is this 500 part of the Southwest, the East, or part of both of them? So it's
City Hall, just City Hall.
It's just City Hall. It was a separate project budgeted separately within the 25 budget.
okay.
I'll make a motion that we receive bids and have that $500,000.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it, but I would hope, I don't know enough about this, so I probably shouldn't be seconding it, but the only reason I'll say I'll second it is between now and the time we have the meeting, I'd like to know more about what's being spent here.
I'd be happy to provide more information.
Okay. All those in favor of moving this forward and suspending the 3 reading rule, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll move that on to council for Tuesday evening of next week. If we can get an update on the State Route 94 and East Reimer Road intersection improvement project.
Just very briefly, we've entered into the first phase contract with our consultant to do the feasibility study first, so that is kicked off. That's on its way, and we'll get back to the council when we get those results to demonstrate what options are really ideal for that intersection, up to and including roundabout.
Now, the grant that we received, was that specifically for a roundabout, or that we do have potential for a grant from NWACA? Is that, it's just for intersection improvement?
I believe it's for a roundabout improvement.
It's for a
I
roundabout.
think it's specific towards the roundabout design.
All right. Any questions on that, folks?
This is also what I asked about earlier in the other meeting, though, that this could be part of the TIF, and the city would not have the responsibility for coming out of pocket.
All right, let's move on to the ODOT road salt purchase.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is a request for a supplemental of $123,000 to fulfill our commitment with the state ODOT state contract to fill our salt bins up for this year's snow and ice season.
Do we anticipate snow and ice this year, Mr.
I don't know,
Bellick?
the past 2 winters have been pretty light, so it's been or the two prior to this were pretty light, and this year we actually used quite a bit. So this is to stock us up and get us in good shape for the upcoming, the following year's season as well. We ask for your suspension of the rules and emergency clause on this one as well. That way we can get stocked up and ready for.
I have a question. Actually, kind of a two-parter. How much is this per ton, and how is it compared to last year's contract?
Sure. This year our contract price was $56.69 a ton, and last year it was $47.76 a ton.
Big difference.
So yeah, it came up a little bit, and usually it's about a $5 swing. It went up a little bit more this year. It's $8.93 more a ton this year than it was in the previous year. But there's a couple of entities that we use when buying salt. We've gone to the ODOT process the past few years because they've been a lot cheaper than CUE, who we used to buy salt from. CUE stands for Community and University Educational Purchasing Association. Their cost, to give you a number this year per ton, is $62.69 a ton. So we're at $56.89, so we have a significant savings there by staying with the state contract. There's a lot more entities and municipalities that get into the pool with the state than CUE, so they get a lot better competitive price.
I'd move that legislation.
Second. Okay. All in favor, signal.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, let's move on to the OPWC grant application.
I'll discuss that. I do apologize, but given the time, I do have to give a little bit of background for this. So OPWC every year has an opportunity for grant, and partial grant, partial loan approval. And we've done, Tolbert was done with that a couple years, with this a couple years ago's approvals. Last year's approval was for Wintergreen area. And it's a very nuanced scoring process, so we have to have kind of some strategy as to what we choose. And long story short, we were able to do that in preparing our application. The application does require this legislative approval, and what I do need to apologize for is that application was due on Friday, and this is somewhat of a late request, and so we're coming to you asking for this legislative request with again a suspension of the rules and a true apology. This should have come to you sooner. And we just didn't get it to on time. So we would request that suspension of rules for that reason. So it is going to be for approximately $800,000 project, of which they will be approximately $600,000 grant, $100,000 loan, and $100,000 local funding, which might be able to be paid through from other sources. So just so you know, it's a lot of grant money that we want to make sure we take advantage of.
I'd move that we move that forward.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move that forward. Let's move on to the airport with the FAA grant.
Chairman, on this airport issue, because I know Mr. Parrish has done a lot of work on this, and I'm a big proponent of some of the things he has in here, but I don't think we have enough time. And I was wondering if we could do a working group where Mr. Parrish and I, and maybe somebody from the city could sit down and we build this resolution out. This should be a council resolution, but it's going to take a lot more time than we have right now. And bring it to the next meeting. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
The next public ways or?
Next public.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So FAA grant was approved, signed, and it broke loose the opportunity for these projects. So just kind of moving down that list. The airport apron project, we're able to start now going into the contract with the low bidder for that. So that project is now essentially, the gates have opened, and now we're able to go through our normal process of paperwork that started with the contractual issues now. So that will get started, and I don't have a construction start date yet. We'll get closer to that. In the next meeting, I should have that prepared to know when that'll start. Similar to that was the PAPI project there that has the acronym there written out for you. That's same boat. Those two projects both broke loose and are both able to move forward. So that's very positive news on all those together. And then for the last one, the AWAS project on the letter D, I don't have any updates other than we're still working with the design consultant and FAA to come up with a scope and move forward on that design. But that design really needs to be done by April so that we can enter in the next grant cycle with FAA. So that's still on schedule.
I believe in this working group that we're proposing that we cover all A through E, not just the resolution, but all A through E.
Okay.
All right. Anything else from administration? Anything else from committee members?
Can we sit down next week maybe and come up with a date for a working group?
Sure.
Find something. So I have a question, probably Mr. Belli could be able to answer this. Do we still have our Durapatcher?
We do not.
I don't remember selling it. Do we trade it for something, or
I think we auctioned it.
did it get
Yeah.
auctioned? Okay, well, I missed that. We use that in the wintergreen development. Now, these are streets that are not going to be refinished. To take care of the large gaps in the concrete, we filled that with a Durapatcher, and they're wide again. Actually, there's some that have actually, the Durapatch has come out and is laying in the street. What can we do about taking care of that condition?
Sure. So as Mr. Davis was explaining earlier about the price being a lot lower coming in with the OPWC grant in that area, we might be able to cover a lot more roads in that area. The ones that we can't, there's a new material out now that's actually a concrete patch, like kind of like cold mix, but it's designed for concrete. We could utilize that product in that area. The problem we had with the Durapatcher is they changed the emulsion that actually tacks the stone together. The EPA changed the guidelines of what we could use for that, and it just didn't hold up. So instead of wasting the money continuing to use that product, it just kept failing for us, and we were getting the same results from the cold mix. So it's kind of why we shied away from
All right, thank you. But you'll take a look at that development?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's just about all the streets there.
Anything else? I'll accept a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.